Hi, I'm Shashank Bhargava, and you're listening to Three Things, the Indian Express news show. Last week, communal tensions took place in Jahangirpuri, an area in northwest Delhi. These clashes took place only a few days after the country saw violent clashes taking place between the Hindu and Muslim communities in 4 states during the Ram Navami celebrations: Gujarat, Madhya Pradesh, Jharkhand, and West Bengal. Now, the clashes in Delhi, like mentioned earlier, took place last week, and it seemed that things were settling down in the area after what happened. But on Wednesday, the authorities conducted an anti-encroachment drive to demolish what it called illegal structures. On orders of the BJP-led North Delhi Municipal Corporation, 7 bulldozers demolished several structures in the neighbourhood, including the exterior gate of a mosque. In this episode, we take a look at what led to the communal clashes, the destruction that the demolition drive has caused, and what the BJP leadership has to say about it. First, to talk about the clashes and the demolition drive, Indian Express's Anand Mohan joins us. So Anand, just begin by telling us, how did the communal clashes first begin in Jahangirpuri last week?
So the communal clashes took place at Jahangirpuri, which is based in northwest Delhi. It's a locality which is made up of these semi-urban buildings which are packed closely together. You mostly have mobile repair shops and bike repair shops, and you have a working class population out there working overtime, earning around 9,000 rupees. So that's the profile of the community. Now, there was supposed to be a Shobha Yatra which was supposed to be organized to celebrate Hanuman Jayanti. The locals and the police have maintained that this procession takes place every year and it has gone off without any incident. But on that date, as per the police case, they say that the procession apparently went through that area twice. The third time when that procession had turned up, there was an argument between some locals at Jahangirpuri and the people at the rally. And that argument led to incidents of stone pelting, and that created law and order problems, following which policemen were deputed and then they ended up sustaining injuries while trying to bring law and order in control in that area.
Right, and the clashes had taken place between those from the Hindu and Muslim community. How many people got injured during them?
So a dozen people had gotten injured during these clashes. Then the Rapid Action Forces and the CRPF were deployed in huge numbers to bring law and order situation to normalcy in the area. Now, there's of course the other view where the mosque committee members of Jahangirpuri's Jama Masjid Mosque, which is located at C Block, have claimed that the rally-goers at the Shobha Yatra had tried to hoist a saffron flag atop the mosque. However, the Delhi Police Commissioner Rakesh Asthana has denied these allegations. He said that these allegations are false. In fact, the police have arrested over 20 people and they've also picked up 2 juveniles in this case. And when these people were produced before a magistrate's court, the police have also maintained that the reason for the clashes was an argument which took place between the main accused Ansar and the rally-goers at the Shobha Yatra, because of which these violent clashes took place.
And we don't know who started the stone pelting, right? The police basically haven't said anything about that.
There is no clarity on who started this first. They have said that they have arrested people on the basis of CCTV footage evidence, on the basis of human intelligence and various other sources. We have to wait for what the case the prosecution is going to make eventually to get some clarity on what happened on the night when the communal clashes had broken out in Jahangirpuri area.
And during these clashes, even some police officers got hurt, right?
Yeah, you're right. Around a dozen people were injured, and out of which 6 of them were police officers. One police officer was in fact shot and he's out of danger right now. And in fact, the police commissioner had also met him after he was discharged from the hospital.
And this was the first major communal flare-up in the national capital since the February 2020 Northeast Delhi riots, which left 53 people dead and many more injured. But now, a day after these clashes took place, there was a Aman committee meeting, a peace committee meeting essentially. How did that go?
So this is like a standard procedure that whenever sensitive clashes take place between communities or whatever, you have the Aman committee members who are basically comprising of the locals from the area, and these people are supposed to have regular meetings with the local SHO. They are supposed to brief the police about various incidents which have happened, or they try to make strategies to make sure that communal clashes don't take place, or if there are like simmering tensions between two communities, then how do they help iron out those differences between them. So the Aman committee meeting had taken place right a day after the communal clashes had taken place at Kushal Cinema Chowk. This meeting took place right in the center of the Kushal Cinema Chowk with the DCP in attendance, and the DCP had in fact tried to appeal for calm, had asked them to take action against rumor mongering, to clamp down on fake news. At the same time, a local BJP councillor, Garima Gupta, had intervened, and she asked the police to take action against illegal immigrants living in that area. However, the DCP was not willing to have any of that, and she quickly left the meeting. In fact, right after this happened, several members of the Aman committee had also begun arguing amongst themselves. However, after that, the police have been holding these Aman committee meetings inside the local Jahangirpuri police station, and these committee members are then eventually sent back to their areas, and they have to go and they have to speak to the locals, and they have to disseminate messages of peace and brotherhood and love, and they try to speak to people from both sides of the spectrum to figure out the fault lines and to come up with solutions and to just make sure that they bring peace back to the area.
Right, and even though the Aman committee meeting was disrupted by this local BJP leader, things seemed to have settled down a bit after the clashes. But then what got Jahangirpuri back into the news was this decision that a demolition drive, or what authorities are calling an anti-encroachment drive, would take place in the area. When and how did this decision come about?
Right, so the demolition drive's decision had come about when an officer from the North MCD had asked the Delhi police to provide them with 400 police officers because they wanted to go on an encroachment drive in the area. So the MCD had maintained that, that this is a scheduled operation, that they do these operations every month. They have said that this operation was not against a particular community, and they have said that this was Jahangirpuri's time as per the operation, and they willing to go about it. They had taken permission for 3 dates, April 19th, 20th, and 21st. They could not begin operations on April 19th because they did not have adequate police forces, considering the fact that the atmosphere out there was a little charged up, considering the fact that clashes had taken place, right? So on April 20th, when we reached the spot, while we were figuring out if the police had in fact given the additional forces, it was pretty clear because they had asked for 400 policemen, but more than 1,000 officers from the Rapid Action Force, from the CRPF, from the police, all of them decked in riot gear, carrying tear gas shells, and turned up at the spot, and they had taken up positions on the rooftops. They had cut away access to a lot of the locals who live in these narrow, dingy lanes in Jahangirpuri, and senior officers had turned up, including the Special Commissioner of Police, Law and Order, Dipendra Pathak, had turned up. And the police had basically turned up to assist the MCD in this encroachment drive. They did not divulge the details as to what this drive would entail and details of this operation. In fact, the locals of the area were of the view that this is going to be a operation just like the past, wherein scrap dealers and their goods and all of that would be removed from that area.
In fact, people in the area even asked authorities whether their houses and shops will be demolished, but authorities apparently had denied that, right?
Right, so the locals had turned up outside their homes early in the morning asking the police that we've read the letter which has been issued by this officer for additional police forces. Are you going to target shops? What are you exactly going after? Is it going to be structures, or is it just going to be goods peddled by scrap dealers? So the scrap dealers very early in the morning had packed it into their little battery rickshaws and they left for local godowns, because this is not the first encroachment drive that they have seen in their lives. But the locals in that area had trusted the police because the police had told them that nothing of that sort is going to happen until the anti-encroachment drive actually began.
Okay, and you were there when the demolition started. Talk about what you saw there.
Right, so a bulldozer just turned up around 10:15 a.m. So the first bulldozer came up and it started to target these empty food cart stalls, right? These hand-driven food cart stalls. Then it targeted a tiny soft drink shop which had 3 chocolate colored fridges which a family had taken after getting a loan of 2 lakh rupees to buy those fridges and many other items. So that was demolished. That shop belonged to this person called Akbar. In fact, Akbar had been helping out the police officials with water and he's been giving them free sugar. He even shifted sunshade to CRPF officers who had taken positions over his terrace. Then the bulldozers broke a small pawn shop which was owned by a Hindu man, in fact. So that was destroyed within minutes. At the same time, a second bulldozer had come in and that started to target juice shops. A total of 7 bulldozers had come to the spot. And they targeted an entire stretch at Jahangirpuri C block leading up to the mosque where the clashes had taken place. So, chicken biryani shops, mobile repair stores which dot the area, bike repair shops. These small shops were targeted. Structures which were built outside the shops, they were torn down.
And Anand, in your report, you also write about this woman named Sarika. Talk about what happened to her.
So there was this woman called Sarika. So she lives on the first floor of the house. There's no ground floor or anything. And there's a staircase which leads out of her home, right? So they raised down the staircase, because of which she was trapped, and it's been more than 24 hours and that woman is still inside that home with 4 kids. And she's not been able to move out of the home because then that would mean that she would have to jump out with her children and there's just sewage downstairs and stuff. And her husband has not been able to make a makeshift staircase. That is because he fears that these guys will again come and raise it down. So he just has asked his wife to stay inside. And woman's neighbor is also unable to go out because the police have completely locked down that area, right? So that guy has to go to the same rooftop where these CRPF forces were stationed, and he made the sunshade for them. He has to go back to the same rooftop and he has to now jump over to an adjacent building and then walk down the stairs and then access another lane to go and buy grocery, come back and again jump back to his terrace and give this woman grocery. So that's how bad it is.
And Anand, when the demolition was going on, where were the owners of these shops and homes?
So most of the owners had turned up there. In fact, we had even shot videos. We'd seen this of how, women came out of their homes pleading with the bulldozers to stop. Their sons, they were barefooted, walking amongst broken glass and rubble, trying to scrounge coins and packets of fruity and soft drinks. There was this woman who could only salvage a lock to her pawn shop. Some of the juice vendors had fled the spot. They were not really there, but they came back when they realized that their shops were demolished. Basically, the upper floors of the shops, the structures which they had erected, which the MCD had said was illegal structures, had all been demolished.
And while this demolition drive was going on, the matter was brought up in the Supreme Court. Senior advocate Dushyant Dave appeared for the Jamaat-ul-Ulema-e-Hind and told the court that the drive was unauthorized and unconstitutional. And the court then gave directions that the drive for now should be stopped. It said that the status quo should be maintained. But despite this, the demolition drive still went on for some time, right?
Right. So after the Supreme Court had asked to maintain status quo, the demolition drive carried away. They started to target many of the shops leading up to the mosque. In fact, the officers in the know had claimed that they had not received the order yet. So in fact, senior advocate Dushyant Dave, who was one of the advocates for the petitioners who went to the Supreme Court against the Jahangirpuri demolition, had to appear before the Supreme Court. And then the apex court had to again ask the council for MCD to make sure that the orders are communicated to the officers. And then the officers claimed that they received the orders. But by that time, the exterior gate of the Jama Masjid Jahangirpuri mosque had been demolished. And the anti-encroachment drive had come to an end by that time.
Now, Anand, to a lot of people, this demolition drive is being seen as a decision by the government to take action against the communal clashes that had taken place last week. Now, obviously, authorities are saying that this is a routine procedure and it happens all the time. But when you spoke to the people there, what did they have to tell you about all this?
Right, so when the drive had begun, of course, people in the area have said that this drive was against a particular community. But then we have seen cases of shops belonging to Hindus which were also targeted. The authorities, like you said, have maintained that they did not target any particular community and this was a routine drive. However, the perception on the ground is a little different, and people are not really willing to buy the official version in this.
And we saw communal tensions in the area last week. But have we seen such incidents in the past as well? Did people tell you anything about that?
So the people in that area, in fact, we've spoken to people who came to this colony like decades ago, Aman committee members, local police officers, and they have never seen anything like this. In fact, the mosque is situated a few meters away from the Kali Mata Mandir, and the locals out there, the Muslims are known to participate in local Hindu festivals, and there has not been any big incident as such of communal violence, or we haven't even heard examples of stray incidents which have happened. In fact, on the day when the clashes had begun, we saw how several Hindu people had come out in support for the Muslims, and the Muslims have also been out in support of the Hindus. And they've always talked about how processions have passed peacefully through this area and how festivals have been celebrated without any incidents of violence. However, this time there was something different which happened, which has made a substantial change to that area.
And Anand, when the demolition drive was going on, were there also political leaders present there?
So yeah, Brinda Karat had turned up when the Supreme Court had asked the MCD to maintain status quo, and she turned up right when the bulldozers had reached the mosque, and she stood in front of the bulldozers. So that had happened.
And Brinda Karat, of course, being the leader of the Communist Party of India.
Yeah. So after that, on Thursday, in fact, we had a delegation of Congress leaders who had turned up. This was led by Ajay Makan. We also had 2 to 3 Aam Aadmi Party leaders who had turned up. The Congress Party leaders had claimed that they did not really turn up on the day of the demolition because Congress leaders Kapil Sibal had moved Supreme Court. So they were trying to help out in different ways, and in fact, that they were late. If they turned up in the night and there would have been a law and order issue, then that would have created problems. They said that they took proper permissions from the police, and after those permissions were granted, they turned to the spot. However, the Congress leaders tried to meet with the families who had lost their belongings in this encroachment drive, and they were not allowed to meet them because the police had said that it was a sensitive situation and they had to maintain law and order. After a lot of cajoling by some Congress party leaders, one boy who was seen picking up fruity packets and coins and stuff, he was allowed to meet those leaders for a few minutes, and then he was again sent back to his home. Apart from that, the leaders have not been able to meet with any family members. In fact, one Congress leader also sat in protest for a few minutes, saying that the BJP was allowed free access to the Commissioner of Police and other senior officials, but the Congress party leaders were stopped from meeting the locals. And the Congress party leaders also attacked the Aam Aadmi Party, saying that they have remained largely mute in this and they haven't really come out in support of these people. So we got to see that today.
And Anand, with people's homes and shops demolished, I'm sure it must have been devastating for them. What did they have to tell you about their frustrations and what they are saying in response?
So on Thursday, a juice seller had in fact come to the chalk waving his documents, saying that he had all the documents. He had a vending certificate from the MCD. He had proper documents from various authorities, from various agencies, saying that he can set up his juice shop and that was demolished illegally. We've met several other people who have been showing us these MCD vending ticket documents. They've shown us challans that they have filled for the MCD. What they have said is that the MCD did not give them prior notice, that they should have been given prior notice and they could have taken action on their own, that they could have shifted their food carts or whatever on their own. And the fact that they did not give that notice was malicious and it was unfair. This is what the people say.
Yesterday, the Supreme Court again heard the matter and gave directions that the status quo should continue to be maintained in the Jahangirpuri area. It made it clear that it was looking at whether the due process was followed before the authorities embarked on the drive. It also told people whose properties were allegedly demolished to file affidavits so as to ascertain if they had received any notice. Now, according to a report by Indian Express's Abhinav Rajput, who reports on Delhi for the Indian Express, there are actually a number of questions that this demolition drive raises if notices were not issued by the North MCD, which is led by the BJP. Abhinav now joins us to talk about it.
So the demolition that was carried on Wednesday in Jahangirpuri, that raises question regarding the due procedure being followed by North MCD or not. Generally, what happens for normal demolition, which is in the form of roadside encroachment, pathway not being cleared, normal stuffs of vendors being laid. So in those cases, you don't need to give a notice if you want to clear the right of the way. But in cases where the encroachment are of concrete and permanent nature, and in which case even the corporation or the landowning authority is not sure whether it is an encroachment or the person who owns the place. So in those cases, what you need to do is you need to give a notice of 5 days in which the person either they have to clear the encroachment on their own, and if they don't, then the MPD clears it. So in this case, what happened is that the exercise was started with normal clearing of road. Later on, what we saw that there was a juice shop that was being demolished. Some shops outer portion were touched, and a masjid gate was also touched. So what is happening is that, especially in these cases of juice shops, people have come forward and now they are claiming that they paid property tax for this. So if you have paid property tax for it, that means it is not a temporary building. It is a permanent building. Maybe they would have extended their jurisdiction. So in that case, the corporation could have used the other way around, which is giving a notice, which, and in this case, no notice was served at all. So it will be interesting to see from here that what happens, because these people are now saying they will go to the court with all their papers and that the due procedure was not followed by the North MCD. And in coming days, the court has to decide whether it was followed or not.
Yeah, and the court now has to decide whether these notices were actually issued or not. But when you spoke to the MCD officials, what did they have to say about it?
So they are saying that it was a general anti-encroachment drive, which they keep on carrying from one place to another, depending upon the availability of force. So here there was a force available, so they did carry encroachment drive. But this is far from truth, because forces are available. Like if you'll go to Northeast Delhi when the riot happened, there also a lot of force deployment was there. But that doesn't mean that they went on and carried an encroachment drive. Now, forces are available in the defense cantonment area. Forces are available from 5 days before 15th August in the area around Red Fort. So do you carry an encroachment drive? There are huge encroachments there. So this is not a justification that just because you have a force available at somewhere, so you'll carry an encroachment drive. And they are not hiding it at all. So the Delhi BJP chief Adesh Gupta had written a letter to North MCD mayor asking him to take action upon the people who were involved in the communal clashes and their properties being bulldozed. So that was in the letter that Delhi BJP chief has written. So it's not that they are hiding also. Things are out there in the open. Maybe North MCD is trying to play it safe because the officials follow a book language. They have to follow it. But we all know, like, politicians have made their intent clear. They are not hiding it.
Now, in the end, we take a look at what the central BJP leadership thinks about what happened in Jahangirpuri. For this, we talk to Indian Express's Liz Mathew, who reports on the BJP for the paper.
So the BJP's view here, the leadership feels that this is something that this encroachment eviction, which is necessary, whether it is in Delhi or whether it is in Madhya Pradesh, it was necessary and it was illegal encroachment. When it comes to Delhi, the most of the leaders say that these places were occupied by illegal immigrants and they have links with terrorists, they have links with criminals. So there is no way that the party or the government let this continue there. So surprisingly, even those moderate traders whom we think they have moderate in their approaches to issues, especially when it comes to this kind of issues, even they feel that these things are necessary.
And usually we find at least some BJP leaders who have a difference of opinion about the way things have been handled. But that is not the case this time, right?
Yeah, usually when we discuss issues, like for example, the hijab issue, there were differences in the party. There were some leaders who think that whatever is happening is not right. But very surprisingly, this time, whoever I spoke to, they were all of the same view that this encroachment and this illegal encroachment should be cleared off. While I was talking to BJ Panda, he was even referring to this Delhi incident to the migrants in Europe, like Sweden and Holland, where he said the migrants have created a no-go zone even for police. He said it is against Indian constitution and the BJP is not against any particular community or religion, but it is against those mafia and those people who are linked with mafia and who are linked with criminals and terrorist elements. This is one stand BJP has taken. And even in Wednesday's meeting, Union Home Minister Amit Shah has taken with the Delhi BJP, the message given to them was, we will keep the pressure on, we will not back down. The party and the government will explore the legal ways to go ahead with the eviction, while the party will keep the pressure on, and there is no backing down on this issue. This is, like I said in the beginning, it is very unusual. Like I said, even those leaders are saying, why can't the Muslim cleric or the prominent Muslims, or even according to the so-called liberal media, why can't they condemn the stone pelting on Ram Navami procession in Karauli in Rajasthan?
Yeah, and this is an incident that other BJP leaders have also talked about a lot, basically referring to communal tensions which had broken out following stone pelting at a motorcycle rally passing through a Muslim dominated area during a Hindu festival in the city of Karauli in Rajasthan. But coming back to the demolition drive, I mean, then obviously it took place in consultation with the central leadership, right?
Yes, certainly. The BJP state unit, the statement in they have issued statements in support of whatever is happening. They would not take any action or they would not make any comments without in consultation with the central leadership. Like I said, Baijayan Panda is the vice president of BJP, National BJP, and he is in charge of BJP Delhi. So his statement is justified the process or action that has happened in Jahangirpuri, and also indicate that the party is firm on its stand over the issue.
You were listening to Three Things by the Indian Express. Today's show was written and produced by me, Shashank Bhargava, and was edited and mixed by Suresh Pawar. If you like the show, then do subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts. You can also recommend the show to someone you think will like it, share it with a friend or someone in your family. It's the best way for people to get to know about us. You can tweet us at Express Podcasts and write to us at podcasts@indianexpress.com.